Welcome back to the video series about Industrial Agile. In the previous video, I introduced Scrum, or Scrum for hardware, the most often used framework to create and produce products in an agile way. I went through the basics, and with a bit of a cleaning up, this is the picture that was on the whiteboard when I left it, talking about how sprint planning starts the whole cycle, the sprint, takes its input from the requirements list, the product backlog, produces a sprint backlog, a list of things to do, work for the next few weeks for the sprint. Delivery happens with a daily stand-up meeting, a daily check-in for the engineers. An increment gets produced, and that increment goes into the check, into the inspection, in the sprint review, where the sprint review can generate that update of the product backlog. Maybe more work is found, maybe less work is necessary. And the retrospective is the Kaizen event, is looking at how the team worked and what improvements are possible there. So that is Scrum. One thing was left out, and you may even have wondered about it. A group of engineers going into that planning session, the sprint planning for the next 2 weeks for the work for the next sprint, they need preparation. If you throw a piece of work on at them saying, hey, produce me a product increment, even if it's just as simple as 3D printed for that marker cap, they want to know something about the materials that are used and the sizing and they want to know details. They have to refine that product backlog item that says produce me a cap into enough understanding so they can do the planning. Refinement happens one sprint ahead, and it happens in parallel with the delivery. How much work, how much time? As much as necessary. If it's something simple as a first version of that cap, maybe a few hours. If it's something really complex where a group of very different engineers needs to collaborate, yeah, you might spend a number of hours there. You need to design, you need to detail out before you can do the work. So it's not a waste, it's not an overhead, it's not a loss. So that's refinement in the small. While scrumming is going on, there's refinement looking just a couple of weeks ahead. The other question that might have been going through your head is, where does the product backlog come from? Is there a magician in the world, and Hermione Granger? Well, if you have one on your team, then make sure you keep her. But no, that's of course not the case. There's nobody with a magic wand who produces a list of deliverables and a list of activities. There's some thinking going on. There's actually a refinement in the large. It's a one-off, it's an edge case, but here's how I picture it. Here's how I talk about it. Product starts with a big idea. Somebody thinks about, hey, what's my idea? What's my vision for a next super duper marker, and comes up with a number of characteristics for that super duper marker. It will come with 25 different colors. It will come in a version that has got a different color at both sides. And hey, there is a list of desires, of wishes. If you think about it, that is a first version of a product backlog. It's rough, it's high level, it needs a lot of thinking and refinement, but there is a product backlog. How does Scrum work? Scrum zooms to a very small set of steps, 2-week steps, sprints, to deliver so that the inspection and the improvement can happen really, really rapidly. There's very little waste because there's not a lot of thinking done up front. There's not a big design up front. So how to make the step from a very rough product backlog to that detail? There's a way to think about it. Do a first run of the refinement with a group of specialists and say, hey, I want a new super duper marker, and what am I missing in this picture? And there's one person from manufacturing and a material specialist and usability specialist, what's a handy marker, etc. And that group brings that vision and that initial list to a more complete product backlog. So the product backlog gets more completed, and it may be really long. It's way longer than 2 weeks. It's always way longer than 2 weeks. And now we need to start thinking about, hey, this is not going to happen all at once. There will be mistakes in the plan. Remember that session about the Agile Manifesto? Plans will change, products will change. So rather than working out that whole product backlog and all the nitty-gritty detail, we can start zooming in. We can only zoom in if and when the people who did that initial refinement, the product people, the business people, the technical specialists, have determined what's most important. There is a prioritization in the list. The focus is clear. Now bring the engineers who will build into the discussion and run another refinement, but do that refinement only for the top of that list. I like to have a scope of about 3 months worth of work. It's fairly stable, 3 months. It's not too much work, it's neither too little. So a good balance between what is stable and what gives enough insight for the engineers about what's going to hit them in the next couple of months. So that refinement with all the engineers will give you a list, another version of that product backlog, and it's actually this product backlog. But now it's got more completeness. The people who do the work know what's missing. It's got a better ordering. It's got more knowledge in the engineers about what they are going to do, not just 2 weeks worth of work, but they also know what's coming in the future. They're designing a first cap, and they know that marker in the end will have 2 endings and 2 sides that can write for you. So there's already more in their head when they do that initial design. So backlog refinement with all the engineers will give an understanding and will give a completeness and will give an ordering which is much better. It's a really good starting point to start sprinting. And now the sprinting and the inspect and adapt cycle will take care of the mistakes, the missing points, the impossibilities, and the late ideas. So that's the thinking in Scrum, to produce a product backlog, to do early refinement, and to do detailed refinement while you are sprinting. Thank you.